Is up, everyone, and welcome to another JellyPod episode. Today we have Wildtangz with Oddest Human Dad. I actually go way back with Oddest Human Dad and have worked with him on a decent amount of stuff. So I'm really excited to have him on the podcast today. For those that don't know anything about Oddest, he is a Cardano developer, and he started a project called Wildtangz a few years back, and has developed a ton of different things, a ton of different tools and mint processes and all this stuff, not only on Cardano, but also even on Bitcoin. And I think you even did some stuff with Doge in the past as well. But one of the big focuses now is on their crypto mining, making it super easy and simplified for anyone to get into crypto mining. And their season 2 mint is currently going on. So we're going to learn a little bit more about all this today. I appreciate everyone joining in. And to start this off here, Oddest, bro, tell us about your Web3 journey here, how you got into crypto, and essentially developing and all of, like, what's your story?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, man. And dude, I'm loving the JellyPod, by the way. It's really cool to see like the awesome reception and what you've done. So I know you and I go way back. So yeah, it's awesome to be here. I mean, I was a developer 15 years ago. I cut my teeth. I think a lot of people know I cut my teeth on the Amazon Alexa, was one of the founders of that project, and then did a bunch of big data and machine learning stuff. But as my day job transitioned away from coding, I missed it. So as as someone who needed some spare time to kind of focus on myself and do some fun projects, I got back into coding through Web3 in about 2022. My brother-in-law said, "Hey, do you know Haskell?" And turned out I knew Haskell, and so that's how I got into Cardano. So yeah, we've been here for 3 years. I mean, we've evolved, we've changed, we've pulled back, we've gone forward. Like, it's been a wild roller coaster, but essentially the mission of Wildtangz has always been, let's use our ability to create tools and, leverage this new Web3 technology to empower independent artists and creators. And honestly, having been able to do that for 3 years and doing that now with the new mining stuff, I mean, that's just been the biggest reward for me.
Heck yeah. And so when you got into developing on Cardano, what was sort of your crypto experience before doing that? Like, were you already invested in different cryptocurrencies, or were you a builder first before an investor?
So it's a funny question because I always say, like, I'm the worst trader on the planet. Like, I always joke with my wife, anytime I make money trading, it's great because it's tax free since I've already lost so much. Um,
Perfect.
but I actually read the Bitcoin paper in 2011. It was going around the halls of our comp sci program, so it's about a year or two old. I think Bitcoin was $80, and I was like, this is never going to be anything. And of course, we know how that turned out. So I dabbled in trading a little bit, but even to this day, I love the decentralization aspect of it. There's a lot of really core technical components about how you do consensus and decentralized systems. I've published some papers in the past on how to do high throughput transactions in sort of a cross global, highly like partition sensitive system. So yeah, for me, it's been mostly about deving, though I definitely dabble in meme coins and shit like that.
Nice, nice. And what was like? How is the experience deving on Cardano? Like, I know it's gotten improved big time with Icon, but what was kind of the experience with Haskell? It was something that you were already familiar with, because I heard from a lot of different developers, especially with Plutus, that it was just like such a pain in the ass building on Cardano. So, like, what was kind of your perspective on it?
Yeah, shout out to Aiken, by the way. They've totally changed the game. I mean, now with Aiken and some of the AI stuff coming from Cursor and Claude, like, it's really easy to get up and running. Haskell, I studied Haskell in college with one of the founders of the language. His name is Paul Hudak. He passed away a few years ago, but it's a very tricky language. And so when I got started, I actually didn't even need to use it that much. 90% of what I did was the JavaScript, HTML type stuff you'd see on front ends. But I think there's like a cool sort of, it's almost like being a master of this weird arcane, like ancient Greek or something. It's something that's very hard to understand. And if you get it right, it's just really fun. So, I mean, most of my day now, like I'll do some stuff in Aiken, I'll write some smart contracts, but most of the stuff is the scaffolding around it and interacting with the different chains.
Okay, nice. Yeah. I mean, that's funny that you were actually taught by one of the founders of that language. So,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
it, as someone who doesn't code, like, is this a language that pretty much no one knows? And
correct. Yeah, yeah, 100%.
yeah. And
Well,
what
so
was
it's funny.
the benefit of picking that for Cardano?
Well, because it's funny because it's so Charles, like the smartest people know it. And I'm not even good at it. That's not a brag. I am terrible at Haskell. I know it, but I'm terrible. It's like I speak Spanish with a jilted accent. Like it's terrible for me. But the real reason is like because it's so mathematical, it's one of these, they're called functional languages, but it's one of these functional languages like Lisp, OCaml, Haskell, MIT Scheme is one. So basically what happened in my undergrad was the smartest people, the biggest brains with the curliest hair would go and learn like these mathematical languages, and then the Wall Street firms would come in and just snap them up. I know these two twin brothers who were like, literally they look like SBF. They're high level professors at, some university. And I bet you they're making millions trading for Jane Street or one of these others. So like, it's a great mathematical language for financial tools, but like, it's pretty inaccessible.
It's pretty inaccessible, yeah. And to kind of pivot into the NFT side of things, I
Yeah.
actually remember when you did your Wildtangz like OG mint years ago now. And I think it was like something like 8 ADA or something like that. I think I even had you on the channel at that time. And that was like the first one of the first time we met where you were just kind of talking about your project a little bit. I mean, so tell us about that original mint. Why did you decide to do it? Why was it so cheap? And I remember you telling me that you actually drew the art yourself, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so what's the story behind it?
Yeah. I got actually, this is shout out the rug plug. So Caleb made me
Oh,
like kind of a
damn.
life-size rug of our OG character. Um, but that's what I've always loved about NFTs is I do some DeFi stuff, and obviously now in the mining I'm into that a little bit too. But for me, I was drawn as a sketch artist to just the creativity of NFTs. I even had drawn like there's somewhere in one of my wallets like a political cartoon I had drawn and minted a whole year before I did Wildtangz. And I was just drawn into like the notion that, as a kid having grown up having like really oddball heroes, kind of like the Gary Larsons, which is Far Side, I think, and then obviously Dave Pilkey with Captain Underpants, like he became famous, but I loved these oddball cartoonists, Charles Schultz and all his stories about peanuts. And so I was just drawn to like, okay, maybe there's a way I can marry my love for cartoons and artistry and all the things that are cool about creativity with this new blockchain technology. So I've really tried to focus there. And when we talk about like some of the new tools, I've definitely tried to put that kind of small underdog spin on it. Because what's the point of building for me? What's the point of building on this new technology if I'm just going to recreate old systems? Like I really want to unlock the ability for blockchains to be a fundamental way for creators to do what they love. So that's where we started and hopefully continue.
So, dude, that's awesome that you made the art. Like because I've talked to a lot of teams. It's really rare to find a developer that also does the art unless it's some mathematical computational
Yeah.
art, you know? Like I
Yeah.
feel like the personalities and skills usually aren't the same person.
Well,
Like, have you always been into the art side or
oh,
like
totally. Yeah. And it's funny because I got kind of there was a period there like we minted out and it was mostly because of technology, truthfully, and like we had partnered with Clumsy Ghosts and done their mint and stuff. So like I got kind of defensive because a lot of people were like, dude, your art sucks, it's this like weird cartoon sketch art. So I started putting out, like, I got annoyed and I started putting out line art drawings of me doing like one-to-one replicas of Wile E. Coyote with insane detail because it was an artistic style I had chosen. Now, again, I'm not the greatest cartoon artist, but like I had chosen a cartoon style. And what's the funniest fucking thing to me is I know this isn't really answering your question, but it just makes me laugh. Is like, we got fudded to shit for bad art. And then I did an art upgrade and I've literally had people say, I miss your old art. I'm like, Jesus Christ, guys, you need to make up your mind. Like, I mean, for me, it's just a labor of love. Like, I knew I was never talented enough to be an artist, but if I had blockchain and Wildtangz as a kid, you bet your ass I would have been selling my cartoons and like trying to find people who vibed with it. And I mean, even to this day, I try to go to art shows with Wildtangz, not because I think it's going to win awards, but because I love sharing that with people. So yeah, I've been doing this since I was a kid for sure.
That's cool. And dude, that is just the epitome of crypto though. Like people will never be happy with whatever you do. So you just gotta, like get used to it. No, that's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
I remember when you did the art upgrade too. Art upgrades are almost like impossible to pull off.
Impossible.
Like it's like I can't even think of times where people like the art upgrade. It's
No,
always like
it's
oh,
hard.
I remember
Well,
even with Jelly Cubes, we tried doing like these skeleton
uh-huh.
things. People fudded the shit out of it. When D Gods did their new D Gods,
Yep.
people fudded the shit out of it. I have not seen an art upgrade go well.
Well, and actually we modeled after Derp, and I initially was like, oh, Derp's the model, they're gonna crush it. And I've liked Derp's evolution in terms of art.
That
They've
is
really
true.
like expanded the brand and now they've got Bajewski under them and stuff like that. So I admire Derp a lot and how they're building IP. I think what you'll see out of Wildtangz is a lot less focus on the IP. I love the character, but we're actually we'll talk about this later too. But we're working closely with a project that's much more IP focused, and I've just been so impressed with how they've handled their IP. It's kind of shown me that like nailing that IP, nailing that character, getting the art right, getting the upgrades right, getting the community right. It's such an intense skill. So man, people will always be upset, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the collection, throughout the few years, I know you guys have been building a ton of different stuff within Wild Tanks. What's the breakdown of some of the things that you guys have built? And yeah, like what was part of the decision making process of like what you guys did decide to build?
Yeah, when season one came out, it was really like a cool membership club to a hobbyist set of tools. So like you want a sweep tool on JPEG because people forget JPEG only used to let you buy one at a time. Okay, I'll build that. I'll put it on some random website. I'll throw the link in Discord. And it almost felt to me like this really cool, like Joe's Garage of going there and finding the things you want. And then, okay, now as a series one holder, I have access to it. And by the way, all those tools are still available. I still deal with people all the time who want them and use them. Legacy.wildtangz.com. If you have a series one Wildtangz, as long as I can muster up the courage to get $100 a month Squarespace subscription, like that's yours. And so I think that membership club was like super important. We open sourced a ton of stuff. It was so hobbyist and so fun. But one thing as I was kind of hearing the community's needs was they were like, look, it's great you're doing all this, but I can't understand it. I don't want to spend 5 hours looking at a Git book. I don't want to read a bunch of documentation. I want this to feel like a place I go to be both engaged with my, portfolio, create new mints, maybe trade or interact with trading apps. And then obviously now with this new mining thing, like earn rewards. Like it'd be great to have that single place where I can be a creator and a collector and become part of this ecosystem. And so that was the impetus for series two. Is essentially we needed a new product. And so series two is our new product. It gives you access to the app, and we don't develop tools outside of the app for series two. It's all in that, single self-contained app.
Nice. And what are some of the things that were in there? Like I know you
Yeah.
mentioned the
Yeah.
sweeping. I remember using the sweeping too because that was something. Yeah, it was like you just gave me flashbacks of how like painful the experience was of like actually buying and selling NFTs.
Well, and shout out to Melon. I know Melon, how do I say this nicely? He retired some of his legacy tools. Like he was kind of like me. He was like doing jungle, doing whatever. And he's like, you
Yeah.
can't interact with multiple dexes. Like, what the hell? There's Gem, there's Genie, there's all this shit on other chains. Like, let's do that on Cardano. So like, yeah, we had in the past a bunch of different tools, and then I kind of decided to focus on one platform. So the old tools were, you could mint, you could sweep, you could burn assets from your collection. I had a lot of open source like artwork generation tooling. And then the new platform is a mobile app. It's native to iOS and Android, and that same code lives on the web as well, wildtangz.com. And essentially, what's there is a portfolio viewer. You can see all your tokens in one place from Bitcoin, Doge, and Cardano. An NFT viewer. You can see all your NFTs from Bitcoin, Doge, and Cardano. And we've recently added this mining utility where when you have your wallets there with Wildtangz, when you have your wallets with your other NFTs, not only are you seeing what they're giving you, but you're earning rewards every day for participating. So that's what we have currently. We have plans to expand and add some more minting utilities. We haven't had a chance to port those over to the new app yet, but that's coming. And yeah, so for us, it's really a jumping off point for the community to do whatever they need to do as that kind of, collector or creator.
That's cool. And I'm actually curious. So I've been having a lot of Bitcoin projects like on the podcast recently. I even looked into Dogenals and like was looking at their ecosystem at one point. How is adding support for these other chains? Like, was it pretty, because there's all this talk right now, especially with Cardano and Bitcoin and how they can be super interoperable. Like what's kind of the details for that? Is it pretty much replicating? Is it almost the same exact code?
Yeah, it's honestly, I mean, we had to build a lot of like sort of what we would call scaffolding. Like we had to build a lot in the front to abstract away an inscription versus a Cardano NFT, and then there's the notion of a collection versus a policy. Like you kind of have to build these concepts. But what I like about these, and I've actually been on a couple spaces recently trying to tout this for other people, is like, Cardano and Bitcoin are the two biggest UTXO chains out there, and they've got to work together. Now, Doge comes and goes, and I love it. I think it's fun. I think it's a great way to inscribe cheap art. It's almost like the cheap Bitcoin. But like, there's no reason why your Bitcoin NFTs that were from a very premium artist couldn't feed into a collection on Cardano that has, a broader applicability to 5 different artists. And then, you find the cheap, fun artist who gives you sticker packs on Doge. Like, they're all part of the same UTXO model. It's very easy to build cross-chain tools. So I've really enjoyed doing that, to be honest.
No, that's really cool too. I also think there's a lot of interest from Cardano users into Bitcoin at the very least. Like it'll be
100%.
interesting to see how many people from Bitcoin start doing stuff on Cardano when there's different interoperability that increases. But it does seem like a lot of Cardano people or just people in the crypto space in general navigate towards Bitcoin. Like a lot of times these different blockchains compete with each other, like, oh, Cardano or Solana or this or that. But it seems like everyone likes Bitcoin. And how do you see like Cardano and Bitcoin kind of going in the future from, I guess, a development interoperability standpoint?
Well, that's what brought me to Cardano initially, but because Charles had his whole whiteboard where our interoperability was like the key thing, and I thought that was the most interesting because as a developer, like for instance, kind of an interoperability analogy is nobody buy or the vast majority of people don't buy gold bars; they trade gold futures. And so if you're dealing with super high priced art on Bitcoin or you're dealing with large sums of Bitcoin assets, like you're not going to buy and sell and trade those all the time. You might use a Cardano derivative, right? And obviously there's wrap Bitcoin on ETH and other things, but I like that view to Cardano as an interoperability layer for Bitcoin DeFi. Now, the open question I always think is like, what is the sort of, like you said, like the cross community pollination? I was surprised to see Dog go to Solana, and I have a lot of thoughts about that, which I won't get into. But like, Leonidas made that choice, so I guess that's kind of where that community went. But for me, I could see in the future a ton of Bitcoin and Cardano integration, DeFi, NFTs, a lot I would want to do around decentralized identity, and anonymous zero knowledge identity, which is actually something maybe we could talk about too. So give me 1 second. My dogs are going absolutely crazy.
Yeah, no worries. Also, for those that are listening in, appreciate you joining. Gunny, thanks once again, man. I really appreciate all the support of you always viewing these pod episodes. But yeah, so yeah, like actually go into that. I think there's so many people in Cardano that don't have development background that are hearing all this stuff about Bitcoin, but there's like not much info on it. So like what
Yeah.
is actually going on?
Well, let me give you a perfect example, right? So something very basic, Bitcoin mining, right? Bitcoin mining is actually very well supported the world over. And at Wildtangz, we're a US company. We comply with all OFAC laws, all sanctions laws. We're very above board. We do all IRS reporting if needed above the threshold. So I have built this company because not in a jingoistic way, but I want to build a strong US company. I believe in that and actually really inspired by people like, Brian Armstrong who have fought for that. So for us, one key thing is like if you're interacting with a Bitcoin ecosystem, let's say you want to earn $20 a month through our platform, right? For us, we would love to support you in doing that. But it's really expensive to verify you as a user because I do not want to and cannot legally send money to certain countries. That said, it's also very tricky for you to provide your identity to me because then you have to trust a centralized entity with certain terms and liabilities. So what we're investigating is, okay, if we have a chain like Midnight or an identity provider like Atala Prism, can we get you on the Bitcoin network, earning Bitcoin, interacting with Bitcoin, and verify that you are compliant with the OFAC laws through a third-party zero-knowledge protocol that is on Cardano, Midnight, any other partner chain? For me, that's like an incredibly interesting use case of I want to blend a financial model with a identity model with a, sort of hobbyist collector web 2 model. And I think that unique combination is going to be super powerful in the coming years. It's why I've, stuck with Cardano and why obviously I think there's a big use case for it.
Man, that dude, you just sent me down a whole rabbit hole. And
Yeah,
you believe all
we've
of that
actually
is
talked to the
possible,
Midnight
right?
Foundation about this, by the way. We're in talks with Midnight as a foundation about how to build this because I think they're going to be huge. And so I've reached out to some of their leaders and they're putting us in touch. I mean, obviously they have a lot of projects they're working with, but this is one of our key use cases we want to build.
And this is and after that conversation, they said something like this would be possible.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're like, hey, let's get you in a funnel. Maybe there's a grant we can give you. Maybe there's investment we could talk. Like I don't know what they'll come up with, but they give me their emails, they give me the access. Like they are really being very responsive to developer needs. I've been impressed with that.
Okay, interesting. I actually want to, before getting into your season two mint here, I actually do want to touch on that a little bit with the midnight sort of thing. How do you think, from your perspective, midnight is going to benefit Cardano? Like, what sort of new capabilities are opening up, similar to what you just said?
Yeah, well, I've tried to explain the zero knowledge thing, and it's kind of an odd computer science concept, but the analogy that zero knowledge people give is imagine you're going into a tunnel and there are two exits. There's a right exit and a left exit, and they're both locked. And you want to prove to someone on the other side that you have the correct key to unlock it. Let's say that person doesn't want to impose on you that you give them your key, but you also need to prove to them that you have the ability to unlock it. The way zero knowledge works is they stand at the other end of the tunnel and they'll call out right, left, and every single time you have to obey which way to come out. So you can imagine if you do that on a computer level, you can do that millions of times. You can basically prove without a shadow of a doubt that you have the key, but you're not showing them the key. So that's what zero knowledge is. It's a way of saying to someone, hey, I have the ability to do XYZ, but I'm not going to show you how I have that ability. Now, where Midnight comes in and why I think that's super relevant is a lot of decentralization lacks trust. And so if Midnight, yes, there will be a bad component. Yes, there will be an airdrop, like fine. But if Midnight can become a core part of the cross blockchain infrastructure for building trust, like it's something I don't think anybody will be able to live without. And right now, the only thing I can think of that's like kind of similar is, you know how everyone uses like Infura or IPFS as a gateway to those NFTs that are on IPFS? Like, I think this could be a big gateway to identity. That's my big guess.
Wow, super interesting. I'm curious. I'm curious what all can come out of this. I mean, when you start talking about being able to use this technology for layer one Bitcoin stuff, I think that can be pretty like that can be pretty insane.
Oh yeah. I think if done right, it can be huge. And for me, that's the goal, right? And I'm obviously small, and so trying to get at a scale that we can start to grow this and make it make sense. But like, you know, that, and I haven't gotten in touch with them, but I've been monitoring kind of what BOS is doing with their kind of Grail bridge that they're trying to launch. Like for me, if those bridges exist and there are custodians out there who want to do this kind of interactivity, I'm fine building on top of them, utilizing a midnight identity layer, and then layering that into some sort of application. I change Bitcoin to Cardano all the time and vice versa. So can we do that in a trustless way where everyone's proving that they're compliant with relevant local laws and regulations, but then also able to interact with a ton of systems and in a decentralized way? Like that's kind of starting to blow my mind. And I think there's a big level up here that Cardano will need to do. It'll need to have better integration, better tooling, better brand, frankly. But like, yeah, it's a huge opportunity.
Sweet. And kind of now like pivoting to Wildtangz season 2. So,
Yeah.
like you said, you've done a ton of different stuff with Wildtangz, bunch of different tools, kind of that whole garage feeling, mints, sweeping, whatever the case is. Now you're coming out with these Wildtangz too, and the focus is on mining. Can you talk to me a little bit more about this mint that's going on and like what is making you like what are you guys trying to do?
Yeah, and I'll share my screen here. I think the mining has really, you know, obviously people love rewards and learning about it, but I'm gonna share. Let's see, can you see it? Okay, let's see.
Yeah. Okay. I think
Hopefully, I don't share any
we
personal
are
information,
good.
but like to me, you know, so we started with all sorts of tools in this one app. This is the wildtangz.com app. You can see here it helps like show my portfolio, the tokens load, and then I can go to my collectibles tab and interact with all of my cross-chain NFTs. So like you'll see here, I actually have some Bitcoin ones that I've linked in here. I think I have Doge down here somewhere too. I guess I unlinked that wallet temporarily, but you know, for me, like the first thing was just building this app that you could interact with. It works on mobile, it works on desktop, right? Like, so that's where we started. And then I think kind of another tab in that. And by the way, if you're a Wildtangz holder, you have access to all of this. In addition to the mining rewards, you get all of this cool stuff. You get widgets on your phone. It's really a nice way to interact with your chains. And then to show you the mining bit, we then went and said, okay, how can we start to get people involved in mining on a very small scale? So if you're coming to mining and you say, great, Thad, I have $20,000 to deploy. I want to put it all on black on Bitcoin and get the most efficient machines. I will say, great. Let me introduce you to my supplier. Go have fun, right? But since Wildtangz with discounts are anywhere from like 30 to 70 bucks, I mean, some people are getting brand new ones for like as low as 40 because they have the right discounts and burns. Like this is really meant to be an entry level product, right? So what I'm showing you here is the dashboard. And essentially what you do, I've canceled my subscription for now just to clear it out so nobody's getting their slots used. But what you essentially see here is like every month you can pick which slots you want, and you can just earn in that native token, right? So here, let's say I wanted a high performing sort of Bitcoin set of slots. Doge is down this month, so I'm going to skip, but Caspa is kind of recovering, so I'll get some of those. Alio's sold out, unfortunately, but you know, this is a way to get with your 40 or 50 bucks, like really nice entry into that kind of like 20 to 30% APY that mining will give you.
Sweet. So basically, it's almost like a shopping cart where they can, shop for their miners without having to touch the crypto mining at all. They can kind of just do everything here.
That's right, 100%. And there are other cloud miners out there. As far as I know, we're the only ones that get to this low dollar point. And there are some other models out there that we can talk through. But like the goal here again is not to passively sit on rewards or for us to make decisions for you. It's for you to learn like how to participate in these decentralized networks and earn and be a part of it. And the nice thing in this model is because you're essentially giving some margin to us to operate the business, we then get the flexibility to give you new machine selections every month when they come out. So like this Alio stuff down here, which is absolutely crushing it. It's each slot is making like $2 a month, which is it's honestly for some people, it's like a 80 or 90% APY. What we're doing is we're saying, okay, Alio came out. Well, let's buy a small allocation of that. Let's make it available to our community. And then we don't have to worry in 2 months if the coin goes belly up, because our community will just go to the slack capacity and we'll resell the machines for salvage value. And we've already captured our margin. So it's kind of a win-win.
Sweet. And like you mentioned, and I'll remove this screen for now. You mentioned cloud mining. Like what exactly is the difference between cloud mining and I guess like what traditionally other people are doing?
Yeah, well, it's cloud mining for you. It's hardware mining for me. So for me, I buy, a $10,000 ASIC S270 and I know all the specs. I have a hosting provider that hosts it with a good electricity rate and we keep that thing online. I monitor it. I have alarms. For you as a user, this is a way to say, I want to earn a certain type of coin. I want to have this level of efficiency and I want to have, like this duration, which now the contract is essentially like 4 to 6 years, which is what we've sort of committed to with our community. But like for us, it's really now like getting you in the mode of thinking about the coins and the efficiency. And I get to think about the hardware and the pool selection and things of that nature.
Makes sense. And like one of the things that we've seen on Cardano a lot recently has been mining projects. So you had GGMC, you have Sneckies, you have different projects like Cardania, and I think like Titans and Bank are getting into the mining scene. How do you guys sort of differ from these other sort of mining projects? Like why should they pick like Wildtangz or like use your platform instead?
Yeah, well, two things. So the first one is Sneckies, we're the strategic supplier for. We've already announced that. And the Alpha LTs, that I can't say what it is I think we have a huge announcement coming up. We're finalizing the details, but something big is going to happen with Sneckies. And so I'm super excited for that. So, more to come, fam. But like I think that's going to be a real game changer. As for the other projects, to me, it's a yes and. Goofy Gophers from day one, we've obviously gotten the Twitter beef because we've compared some of our returns to some of their returns. I thought it was educational and fun shit posting. I think some people were pretty upset. But but the bottom line is like Goofy Gophers, you get a gopher, you burrow it, you get passive rewards. You have a different return profile because they're managing the machines, they're taking the pools, and then they're not saying, oh, you could get this coin or this coin. Like they're just giving you rewards in ADA. Similar things happen with other projects. I'm not familiar on every single project, but like, we're not that model. We're and actually you can highlight Opti as our community manager. You can choose mining slots. That is our model. So choice, flexibility, the ability to be plugged into a specific coin, right? That's where we shine because to us, whereas Goofy Gophers might be about earning passive income, for us, we're building a tool that empowers independent creators and artists. So like, I'd rather give an artist $20 a month to support their ability to buy paint supplies than I would reward large holders for like, massive holdings of passive income. Now, if you have enough money, I say mint both, right? I personally hold a Sneckies. I personally hold a Goofy Gopher. It's burrowed right now. I personally, I haven't bought Bank yet because I'm low on ADA, but I'll do that after this call. I work with Cardania all the time and I'm saving up to buy a Nexus miner, like tons of models out there, but we're really kind of radically different in that sense.
Okay, sweet. And I also want to say what's up to everyone listening in real quick. I see you in here, Ken. Ken also said it's also cost is significantly cheaper for Wildtangz. Good morning, DeFi mofo. JP Riggs, nice to see you. He says he mines Bitcoin as well. S Smart, what's up? Wildtangz are the ish.
Nice.
Sweet. And with this crypto mining, I guess like what's sort of your longer term vision with this? Like what's kind of your end game plan here?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, we have the machines, they're paid for. I'm not going anywhere. I've been here, I'm coming up on 3 years in May. I'm going to be here another five, six, as long, till the wheels fall off, right? So for me, this community is always going to be focused on the things I love, building tools and stuff that our community asks for to support them. Chambers in chat the other day said, "Hey, can we have like a USD conversion in our dashboard?" And I was like, okay, sure. And then, a week later, if you go to our dashboard, I'm converting the amounts to USD. So like, I love that focus. I think there is going to be a broader play here for Wildtangz. Wildtangz currently has a couple brands under us. We have Wildtangz, we have Otternals, we've dipped our toes in Doge. Like, I think for us, I would love to build an ecosystem of IP and tools that, just make NFTs really relatable and relevant. So you'll see a lot of stuff coming out from us. You'll see, potentially some more like integrations. You'll see maybe standalone apps that bring in people who are not even into NFTs but have similar benefits. But yeah, for now, for Wildtangz mining, I mean, we're running till the wheels fall off. And by the way, I should add one more thing: fully automated. Every single day, I'm sending out hundreds of dollars on a daily basis in cryptocurrency. So you reach our thresholds, every single day that slot is paying you out, right? And there are thresholds so that your exchange doesn't reject you if you chose a centralized exchange. But like, I want to make this as automated and clean as possible, just like you're in a Web2 ecosystem.
Sweet. And I also said, Ken said, don't forget the portfolio benefits either. So it's like you're getting the crypto mining benefits and then also all of the other tools, portfolio, all
Yep.
of that sort of stuff.
Yep. It's a both and. Yep.
And I remember when we were just having like a personal call, I don't even know, like a few weeks back, I'm losing track of time. You were talking about trying to really onboard Web 2 into this because there's a lot of people that want to get into crypto mining. They don't really know how to get into it, but they want to get into it, right?
Right.
Like, have you like decided on any sort of future plans on sort of of that process of like getting people into it that aren't familiar with crypto already?
Yeah, 100%. And so for those who don't know, I did the work on JellyPad in combination with Jason. For those
Yes.
who don't have a Jelly Cube, I have a Jelly Cube. I was graciously gifted by Jason. I love that community. Check out the JellyPad. Obviously, you're here on the JellyPod. That thing is fucking awesome. And I love what we've built there. Like, you as a creative person are so talented at saying, like, I want to offer this. How can we build it? And we've had a great relationship, I think, where like you come up with something and I'm like, oh, we can do this. And then we scramble and then we're like, no, it doesn't work. Now it works, So
Yeah.
it's been wild, but like, I'm really proud of what we've done there. And I know you got the roll launch coming on
Yeah,
that. So
same.
fingers crossed that goes well. But like, yeah, what we were talking about is, one thing I love about your site is if you go to it and you participate in something on the JellyPad, other than signing a transaction, it feels like a Web2 environment. It feels like I'm buying some like limited edition Nikes, or I'm like participating in a cool giveaway. Like that's what I love about the best DApp experiences. So more to come on what we're going to do. We have a big play here. I've got a designer under contract. I've got a whole brand I'm thinking of. Like, I've got a lot of things I want to test with this, and it's only going to benefit Wildtangz. It's not going to impact anything Wildtangz. Wildtangz is all set and done for. Like, I have fully isolated that community from anything new we do, but I want to keep building so that, yeah, if you're an enthusiast, you can go to Wildtangz. But like, if you're not, here's this other thing you can, interact with to be part of the NFT ecosystem, and it won't even feel like NFTs.
I don't want to, yeah. I think that's dope because I have so many friends that know I make content and stuff like that that hit me up all the time. Oh, how do you get into crypto? And like recently, this past time was like XRP for some reason. Like
Interesting.
within a 2-week period, and I should have known the market was about to top at that time because within a week I had maybe 8 or 9 people hit me up. All of it was about XRP. So it was really weird how that happened, and I should have taken that as like a cue. Um, but yeah, a lot of them just don't know like how to get involved in this stuff still, and I think a lot of things seem easy just because we're familiar with it for years of experience. Like for me, it is no big deal. Down if I want to go on any chain, okay, I download this wallet. I know how to do
Yeah.
all this stuff. But I feel like for the outsider, it's like, okay, I need a centralized exchange account, and then I gotta link my bank account. I gotta buy a crypto, and then I gotta download some wallet, and I have a seed phrase, and I've got to send the crypto there, and then I've got to go to this other site, and I've got to buy this, and it's like, holy crap! Like when I actually take a step back, there is so much friction to actually getting into these different projects, even Jelly Cubes related stuff. So
Yeah.
I think if you can make crypto mining accessible and still benefit obviously the Wildtangz and hook those guys up for believing and supporting for years now. I like that needs to be a priority, honestly.
Yeah.
There's a
Well, and
lot of interest that they just don't know how to get in.
yeah, I mean, I'm ride or die for my community, so there will never be, there will never be a time I don't try to go to bat for them. But like you said, people forget, for my parents who have some money, who like Bitcoin, who like the thought of Bitcoin mining, who have invested in oil stocks, energy stocks, startups, like they're not wealthy, but they know these concepts. They think Coinbase is hard. Like that's what you have to remember.
Yeah.
They think Coinbase is tricky. Are you really telling them to download a non-custodial wallet that integrates with D-apps through a third party? It's like, fucking, what are you talking
It's
about, dude?
crazy.
It's so I think that's the next leap. I like to shout out builders. I think Comet from JPEG Store is making me think completely differently through their use of social logins. Like I am so impressed with what they've done there. So yeah, I think there's like just an insane white space. I know it's cliche to say we're early, but like insane white space for building for, people who maybe have dabbled in crypto. There's, I think A16Z said there's like 600 million people worldwide who own crypto and maybe 20 million monthly active users. So like you're talking about 90% of people who are curious and want it, but just don't know how to get in.
Exactly. And what are the details for the mint actually? So you have the season 2. Tell me about like if someone was listening, wants to buy it, wants to get involved, like how do they get involved? Because there's some upgrading stuff going on. Like what's the
Yeah,
details?
we're coming to the tail end of the upgrades, and it's pretty hard to find one that's affordable on JPG. Honestly, the kind of final holdouts are, I love them, but they're final holdouts. What I would say is wildtangz.com/mint. Pick the new art, and if you're interested in coming in a large way, reach out in the Discord, and we can get you hooked up with discounts. But if you maybe just get one, two, or a few, like wildtangz.com/mint, it's 99 ADA, ADA is whatever, 70 cents. So you're looking at about $70 USD. And it's about one to $2 per tangs per month for rewards. So you could get anywhere from like a 10 to a 30% APY on these mining rewards. That's what we're targeting. We want you to be able to come in with one or two. Again, if you want to ape in like a whale, come talk to us in the Discord. But wildtangz.com/mint, it's only available for 10 more days. Then the policy locks and it's the community is locked. So yeah, I hope people ride or die with us, man. Like we welcome anybody. We welcome people to come in and share their projects, share what they're building. Like that's just the vibe we want to put out.
10 to 30% is pretty high too, honestly, because you still have the NFT. Do you know what the I don't know. Like, do you know what GMC is? Like, I have no idea, honestly.
I hate doing that to them now, because the one thing I think that was unfair about what I did is they minted differently than their secondary. So I think like their secondary is so high now, the APY looks bad.
Yeah.
Which is just, you're not in control. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the other ones are. I think the way I'll say it is like native mining is like 20 to 50. And then obviously because you're giving tanks some margin to operate, to keep the machines flexible, to do all this stuff, that's why you get pushed down to 10 to 30. And so that's kind of the trade-off here. But I would say traditional mining somewhere in the 20 to 50% range.
Okay, nice. And kind of like one of my, I know we're winding towards the end of the podcast today.
Sure.
One of the question I had here is, you're obviously a talented dev. You can pretty much build most things, I would say, on multiple different chains. What was the fascination with the mining side? What was kind of the idea behind, hey, let's take Wildtangz the mining route, let's try to simplify the mining, let's focus on that, let's be a provider for that. What was the deciding factor for you?
Well, it's a true story. My dad said, "I want to mine Bitcoin." And I said, "Okay, give me 10,000 bucks and I'll set up a machine." And he said, "I don't want to give you 10 bucks, let alone 10,000. You're an idiot." And so what I did was I actually had worked with a project on Bitcoin called Hashlings, and Hashlings does almost this exact same model, right? You buy a Hashlings, you get a pickaxe. It's sweet art. I love them. But what I realized about them is their entry point is $3,000. So if you get the lowest, and their APYs are good, they're just giving you pass through for mining, so they're doing everything right. But like to get a start with them is $3,000. So I combined my dad wanting to get in, that kind of retail interest, the community we had and wanting to go to bat for them with this existing Hashlings model. And that's how the very narrow fractionalized was born, right? We took that existing thinking, we took people who wanted to be in it, and we drove the price way down. And I think what I'm most proud of about that is I have people with literally 2 tangs in a country where they're making their average wage of, $10,000, $20,000 a year, if that, and they're able to build on what they have, right? That's for me, like how we got there. It was a combination of conversations, but yeah, just wanted to go to bat for my community and make it as accessible as possible.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, Otis, what a pleasure getting to know your story a little bit more. Thank you
Thanks,
to
man.
everyone tuning in. I know we have some people tuning in from your channel, from Jelly Cubes, from Jason, from YouTube. So appreciate everyone who tuned in live today. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrapped up the pod?
No, we've talked a lot about Wildtangz. I would just say I love Jelly Cubes too. I know you guys are great builders. So for anyone in our community who's going out there, look at what Jason's doing with Jelly Cubes. You got the roll coming up, and look, man. I mean, for anyone who's been here more than a year, you just take your fucking lumps. It's crazy. So I'm super proud to still be here building. I'm proud of my community for being there with me. I want to support everyone in my community. I want to support everyone in Jelly Cubes. So again, just thanks, man, and let's keep building.
Yeah, bro. And like a completely like side topic before we end here. It's crazy how many projects have ended. Like
Yeah.
Makosi just announced that today. We had Goomble's announced that
Wait, who
recently.
announced it today?
I mean, Makosi Planet.
No
They
way. Oh
yeah,
wow, I didn't
yeah.
see that.
So
Ugh, damn.
yeah, I mean it's crazy like how many projects there are. So I mean, shout out to you guys. It's been years since you launched the collection now. Barely raised any money from it. So you gotta give respect to that. Like,
Thanks, man.
at the end of
Thanks.
the day, you gotta give respect to that. But awesome, guys. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Hope y'all enjoyed it today. Check out Wild. What was your site again? Wildtangs.
Wildtangs.com/mint.
Wildtangs.com/mint for those that are interested in scooping up some tanks. But yeah, Opti, pretty sad about Makosi. I commented, I mean, those guys really built a lot of stuff. I mean, they had like a whole game and breeding game and trading card game. I mean, they did so many things, but yeah, it's the nature of the space. Maybe we'll do another podcast about that. But I'll see you guys. Thanks for coming on.